Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cornell Cooperative Extension for our monthly consumer issue program. My name is Mike Danaher. I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the New York Attorney General's Office. We come out here monthly, the second Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. at 615 Willow Avenue in Ithaca to discuss various issues related to consumers, consumer law, consumer rights, how to protect your rights. I also focus a little bit on consumer responsibilities because I think that sometimes we forget that we as consumers also have some responsibilities to do the best that we can to make sure that we understand whatever transaction we're going to get involved in so that it is a good consumer transaction that occurs. So today we're going to talk about consumer rights in the marketplace, which is kind of a general category related to what the consumer's rights are in the marketplace and what steps consumers should do to make sure that they are able to protect themselves. We're going to talk about the different laws that generally govern the marketplace and including the laws that are out there that will help consumers. Markets themselves are theoretically designed to be efficient. That's, capitalism. And I remember when I was in college, my first semester, I took one of the economics classes. It was macro or micro. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the basic economics course. And the first thing you'll learn in the basic economics course is about the law of supply and demand, and they have yield curves that crisscross, and one axis is supply and one axis is demand, and then where the lines cross is kind of where the optimum price or the lines actually move, supply line and demand line, and then the price line, and what happens is that, again, in the theoretical markets and to the best that we hope to do, some of the reason why it's theory is that it's assuming that everybody involved in the transactions are of equal knowledge and equal level on the playing field. So buyers know the same stuff as the sellers know, and the sellers know the same stuff as the buyers know. And under the law of supply and demand, the greater the demand, the higher the price will increase. The lower the demand is low, the price will be low. Likewise, on the supply side, if the supply is low, the price will be higher because there's more people fighting over limited number of goods. And when something is oversupplied, I'll use the classic example of dating myself. I'll date myself. Cabbage Patch Kids back in the day. When they first came out, you couldn't find them. And then after that, I would say that holiday season. And then the next holiday season, there were too many of them because eventually people got them all and it didn't remain hot like they would be. So ideally, buyers and sellers come together to sell and buy goods and services. In free markets, the free markets play to bring the prices where the buyers are willing to pay, a price where the buyers are willing to pay, at the same place that sellers are willing to sell it for. And when the two converge, that's kind of the ideal price right in there. Because if the price goes too high, you're going to have less demand. People aren't willing to pay that much. Price is low, you're going to lose supply because, excuse me, there won't be enough stock because people are willing to pay that particular price. More modern times, I guess we could say like iPhones or something. When they first come out, you always see the news people outside the Apple store seeing a line of people wrapped around the building because they're all there to get the newest iPhone. However, markets don't always operate efficiently for various reasons. Based on our assumptions are that the parties have all the facts and can make decisions with full knowledge. All buyers come into the transaction with equal bargaining power. We know that that's not always true. I'll use another example, the housing market in Ithaca. There's, based on my experience, a significantly more demand than there is availability. In our ideal economic thing that we're talking about, what does that do? It drives up prices if there are more. So in that particular case, they call it a seller's market, and then there could be a buyer's market. It depends on what's going on. I mean, we've had situations in the not too distant past that car prices came down because there was more demand, there was more supply than there was demand, and manufacturers would have to reduce their prices somewhat or give rebates. They're all given rebates and all that stuff. Unfortunately, some merchants have exploited this advantage to manipulate consumers. And that's the thing we as consumers have to be very aware of and have to understand what's going on. Consumer laws, therefore, are not necessarily designed to protect consumers in the sense that it would give consumers an advantage. It's designed to protect consumers in the sense that it helps to put the consumer on the level playing field. It's helped to level the disparity in bargaining power, knowledge, and that sort of thing. I would say that merchants naturally, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's just that merchants naturally have the upper hand in the sense that usually they're larger. They know, or should know, what their products and services do, and what they don't do. They know what their actual cost is for selling an item. We as consumers don't know actually what their cost is. And they know what they need to sell it for to acquire a profit. They're usually the experts on their particular good or service. You don't hear too many instances of merchants complaining that consumers took advantage of them. On the other hand, consumers are usually not the experts. They might not know really what a good deal is from a bad deal. Is this a good price? Is that a good price? What will this thing or this service do for me? First of all, what do I need? And will this thing do it for me? And a lot of times we rely on the merchant to provide us with that information. And that's in the context of which the consumer laws are adopted. And there are many of them. I can't sit here and go through all of the different ones. There are things that the legislature perceived to be a problem in that disparity and enacted laws to cover that scenario. For example, there's a law out there that involves the protection of Torah prices. Torah can be very, very expensive, handwritten and all that stuff. And there's consumer statutes out there to protect that. There are two general, I consider them to be two general consumer statutes out there. One is Section 349 of the General Business Law, and the other one is Section 350 of the Business Law. Section 349 of the Business Law makes it illegal to engage in deceptive acts or practices in business. 350 makes false advertising illegal. And there are, again, general statutes. There's been a lot of cases and case law interpretation of what it means and what it applies to, and I won't get into the weeds on that. Just to say that it's designed there to say, in essence, if a reasonable person looked at the actions of a business, and that reasonable person, actually, from the Attorney General's perspective in the court cases, it said even the gullible person it covers. Now, somebody could say, oh, you're crazy. How did you believe that thing? It's actually designed, the court cases have said it covers those people. Because everybody knows, merchants and those of us who aren't gullible, that there are people out there that do that. So we have to protect them too. So that's how it goes. And it pretty much prohibits illegal, deceptive business practices. Illegal business practices are practices that are in violation of law. So, again, getting in a little bit to the weeds, but 350 says no false advertising. Well, no false advertising is a violation of the statute itself. And because it's a violation of that statute, it's also a legal business practice under Section 349. So it's kind of both two in the same thing. And when we sue the cases, we will sue them comparable. And I'll use an example. I always like to use war stories. Hopefully it doesn't put people to sleep. I just finished a 4-day trial on a general business law and false 349 illegal deceptive business practices and false advertising case against a business down in my area, down in the Broome County area, that is still in existence. We'll ultimately wait for the decision from the judge. That is a postgraduate high school basketball program where our allegations were, and I believe our proof in the trial showed, that people with hopes and dreams of getting a scholarship to play college basketball, in fact, many of which, maybe half, were from outside the country, came in to participate in this program believing that they would be put in front of college coaches and have scholarships issued and that they would then be able to go to college in the United States, and it happened to United States people as well, to academically support, financially support them. They'd be able to play basketball in front of big crowds and then get their college education. What a great thing. So people would come in and pay anywhere from the high thousands, like $9,000 for this 6-month program, up to $15,000 to $20,000 for 6 months. And they were told, among other things, that they had a chef, they had a meal plan, they played 30-plus games in front of college coaches, they lived in high-quality accommodations in a college-like environment. That's just some of the things. We had witnesses who testified from all over the world. Luckily, in this day and age, we were able to incorporate Skype into our trial, where we had people testify. On Skype, we had people testifying from Kentucky, England, Norway, and Spain. There were people who were all testifying that, and we took the testimony over. And our allegation against them is, you've engaged in illegal and fraudulent business practices to bring in. Without giving you all the details of it, it was a 4-day trial. I will tell you that the owner of the program, who also testified by Skype, told us that they just started their 5th year, so they had 4 full years. People were quitting, and then they would get more people to join and pay more money and stuff each year. So he did not even have an idea of how many people he pushed through this program. that he had at most, and we still aren't sure if that's been established, at most, one kid went to a Division I college. So you're talking 100 and some players, and they got one. And that was just this past year, so it wasn't even recent. It wasn't even back at the beginning. So we made an allegation and have tried this case to show that they were engaged in fraudulent legal business practices, getting people, and we had consumers come in and testify how some had to take out high interest loans just to afford to send their child here. We had one guy who testified from the UK, a father, who flew over with his son on a weekend. It starts October 1st of every year. He flew over with his son on October 1st. He went to, by the witness's definition, the dump that they were going to have these kids live in, and he took his son home. Didn't even stay. So that's one of those laws that's there to decide, is there to protect the consumer. Let's use what we talked about at the outset, which is the business knew what they offered. The business knew where people would be staying. They didn't tell people where these places were. In fact, one group of kids actually came before they signed up for the program and were given a tour. And the tour they were given was of a place that they ended up not living in. They put them in the place that they had claimed that they chose to use for the facility, for their housing, was in a very central location where there was a Wegmans grocery store across the road. There was a mall across the street from that, across the street from the hotel. Wegmans was kitty corner from the hotel. And it was the bottom floor of a hotel they were told was going to be the place. They ended up living in an apartment building that was probably 8 miles away, out in the far outskirts of a municipality, the closest grocery store probably being 2 miles away. So it was completely not what was portrayed to these people. So we undertook a proceeding and brought an action against them for this illegal deceptive business practices, because when these people signed up, the only access to information they had was on the business's website. And the business's website said, oh, we've got high quality apartments, and education is first, where you get to take SAT prep classes and college classes, and it was just nothing to what they had claimed. And so we have sued them because that disparity in bargaining power and understanding led to these people being induced to come to a program that was not anything of what they were told and what they expected. So it's just kind of an example of how the laws are designed to make it a more level playing field. It is illegal. It is against the law to engage in illegal or deceptive business practices. What some people don't understand is that deception, fraud, those sorts of things can happen in two ways. Fraud can be an active, affirmative misrepresentation. We have a top chef in our program. It turns out that the person actually we aren't even sure they even had any cooking experience, much less being a top chef. And on their website they had our top chef prepares meals. Well, during testimony the day before yesterday, I think it was, the owner of the business said, well, it's our top chef. And when I asked him, I didn't really understand at that point in time. I said, well, what does top chef mean to you? It's not in my mind, it's not a cook. What's top chef mean? He says, that's not what it says. This is what it says right here, Top Chef. It says, our Top Chef. So apparently what he claimed that meant, and that I assume he would think that any reasonable person reading that, it would mean, since he was the only cook we had, he was our top chef. And then he went on to say that he thought that chef and cook were equivalent. He did admit that he wasn't aware of any educational training, any experience, or anything that this particular cook had in designing meals for practicing athletes. So he believes, well, it's technically true. Our top chef. He's the only one we got. But fraud can also occur by omission. Instead of just making an affirmative claim, this car does this, and it doesn't, everybody would agree that's false advertising. You can't, it's all that. But false advertising is also constituted, and fraud is constituted, where you have omissions, where something might be, I'm not going to even say that's technically correct, our top chef, but the language might be technically correct, but it is a fraud if you omit a valuable, important piece of information. This is an example I've used before, but I'll use it again just because it's so glaring, and I think everybody would agree with it. If you see an advertisement on a car in the newspaper where it says, this XYZ type car is sold brand new for $25,000, and you've done your research on XYZ cars, and you have never seen an advertisement or been online where it's less than $29,000. You're like, this would be a great deal. I really want this car. And you take your time, you go out to the dealer and you look at the car and say, man, that's awesome. I think I'll get this car, let's do it. And then they say to you, do you want 4 wheels with it? Because if you want 4 wheels, it's $30,000. I mean, we can just give you the car. That is so bad and so false. But it's an omission because in the ad it didn't say, if you want tires, it's another $5,000. So omission can be just as bad as just an outright fraudulent display. So again, it's to design, and for advertising purposes, and for those of you that are merchants out there, advertising, fraudulent advertising is not determined fraud by the way that you interpret the ad. The fraud occurs occurs as a result of the receiver of the message and their interpretation of what that message is. Again, trying to level that particular playing field. There's other consumer laws, representations that a business that is 100% of a chair. Well, this would a business sells something that says 100% of the profits go toward charity. Well, they have to be able to justify that. There has to be a complete justification. If there is nothing's going to the dealership above reimbursement for expenses, and misrepresented otherwise would be fraudulent. Misrepresenting the results of a weight loss program. If you're as anal as I am, maybe because I'm in the business now, if you look at the weight loss ads and things that are on television, look at that bottom language. Instead of the six-pack ab guy up there with the picture next to him where he had this big, huge gut, look at the very bottom of one of those ads. I challenge you to do this. And you'll see results not typical. Results vary. So That's their saying, yeah, it happened to this one guy. So depending on if the disclaimer is sufficient to notify consumers that this product may not work for you, otherwise it would be deceptive. Stores' return policies. There's a law in New York that requires stores to post at or near the checkout area what their return policy is. It has to be posted so that the consumer knows before they hand you the cash, if they want to return it, maybe they're giving it as a gift. And it turns out that the person they're giving it to has 20 of them already. They should post what the policy is. Here's the example I would use. A consumer knows that their friend who's having a birthday has this crazy hobby. Not a hobby that the buyer would ever engage in. And the stuff for this hobby are sold at very specialized stores. So the buyer would not otherwise go in this store to begin with. And the buyer isn't sure if their friend has this thing. And they think, okay, I can just take it back when, if the guy already has it. If they go in and they see the return policy post that says, first of all, returns are only accepted for a certain period of time from date of purchase. Do you get your cash back if you return everything within that period of time? Is it only store credit that you get when you return that item? And person needs to be aware of that, because if that buyer says, well, I can always take it back, but then if they never shop in that store, to them that's, they're not going to get their money back, ever. That's why the law in New York says you have to post what your return policy is. Not to give this is a classic example, it's not to give the buyer an advantage. It's only to level the playing field so the buyer can make the decision. Okay, I only get store credit. I'll take the risk that he doesn't have these other items. And then when the person has that already, the buyer knows, at least they said, okay, I knew it, I chose it. Or the buyer could make a good buying decision and say, you know what, I think I'll think of something else to get them so that I can take it to a store that has a different return policy where I can get my cash back actually at the end. Again, level the playing field. There's also, in certain circumstances, and I will emphasize, limited circumstances, where businesses, where consumers are allowed to actually cancel a consummated transaction. The 3 business days to cancel deal. A lot of people think that when they go out to buy something, especially a high-ticket item, they just automatically think, okay, I'll just bring it back and I have 3 days to bring it. No, that's not necessarily the case. Let's use an example. A car. You go to buy a car and then you have it over the weekend, you go, I couldn't afford this. I need to turn it back. Sorry, it's a done deal. So there's only limited circumstances where consumers have 3 business days to cancel the transaction. And I would say to you that if you're going to lump it in kind of a broad category, it's the high pressure kind of transactions that do that. 1, door-to-door sales. Somebody's coming knocking on doors, coming into your space where they want to sell you a vacuum cleaner or whatever. If you decide that you want to buy it, you have 3 business days to cancel. So you get it. I mean, you feel pressured because the person's in the olden days, they vacuuming up the dirt that they threw on your floor. And look at how great this vacuum cleaner works. And you get it afterwards, he goes, I can't afford this, and I don't like this, and I don't need this. But I felt pressured to buy it. You have 3 business days to cancel. Now, I will also tell you, 3 business days equates to what? 72 hours. My opinion is that is the fastest 72 hours that you will ever experience. It goes by very quickly. You've got to be on those sorts of things. And I would never, ever encourage anyone to say, well, I got to get this person out of my house. Yeah, let me sign, and then I'll immediately cancel. At least then, and then the salesman's gone. If you don't want it, you say no. I'm sure that you'd be much more pleasant than me, but get out of my house. You have that right to do that. Don't feel pressured. If you don't want it, you don't need it, don't take it. But in the off chance that you end up getting it and then you have second guesses, that's one scenario where you will have 3 business days to cancel. Telemarketing sales. Get all these calls all the time. Want you to buy this, that, or the other thing. Again, it's kind of an infringement upon your space. They're calling you on the phone. You actually have 3 business days to cancel a telemarketing transaction. Again, it's so much easier to hang up the phone than it is to try to get out of one of these transactions afterwards, unless you're sure that that's something that you really want. Don't say yes. Another area where there's 3 business days to cancel is a home improvement contract. A contractor comes out to your home and has you sign a contract to do this remodeling of your house. And you sign the contract and you think about it and you say, this really isn't something we can afford. This really isn't something that we want. You do have 3 business days to cancel. Another one is a financial transaction where you have 3 business days from the time that you are provided with the financing option. So it could come into play in a car sale, not because of the car sale itself, but because of the financing aspects of the car sale, that you could have 3 business days to cancel if it turns out that all of a sudden you signed on to a 20% loan for a vehicle and you realize, oh man, I can't afford it. I'm going to be paying this for the rest of my life. So then you would have that option to cancel. But only the financial side of it, the lending side of it. So it does not apply in all transactions. It does not. So be very wary. You don't always have 3 business days. Some people believe that they do, and they do not. We've had people call our office and say, but I have 3 days, right? No, you don't. It gives a cooling off period where people can stop the deal. And again, if it's just a straight car deal where there's no financing and you just come in and you pay $15,000 in cash or something, you do not get to cancel that unless the business says that it's okay. Here's another one, just kind of a different area, is in New York, we have a statute, again, in our general business law, which is exactly what it sounds. It's a group of laws that are just general, different business type topics. There's one that requires anyone, this includes corporations, because corporations are separate entities in and of themselves. If they use something other than their real name, they are obligated by law to file what is called a business certificate. I call it a DBA certificate, a doing business as. They're required to file in the county clerk's office a DBA certificate indicating the name in which they are doing business. Why is that? Level the playing field. Somebody, I'll just use an example of home improvement. Tompkins County Fix It. Tompkins County Remodeling, and I don't know that there's even a name. I hope there isn't, because I'm not picking out anybody. Let's just say Tompkins County Remodel. Let's say it's a sole proprietorship of John Smith. John Smith uses the name Tompkins County Remodelers. John Smith is required to file in the Tompkins County Clerk's office a business certificate saying, I, John Smith, are doing business under the assumed name Tompkins County Remodelers. And why would that be? That would be because consumers may only know this remodeler under the name Tompkins County Remodeler. What if you hire Tompkins County Remodeler and there's a problem with the deal? Problem, work wasn't done right, I don't know. If you went to sue them, you couldn't find them because you can't sue a DBA because a DBA is not a person. It's not somebody that can be sued. You have to sue John Smith because he's the owner of the business. Same with a corporation. If the corporation is Tompkins County Remodelers, Inc., so it's a separate entity. Okay. But they've got a side business that they want to push, which is, and again, I'm making up names, so TC Seamless Gutters. If somebody, oh my gosh, the gutters were bad, whatever, and they went and they said, I got to sue these people, and they went to find TC Seamless Gutters, and there's no entity. They can't find them. You know who it is. Tompkins County Remodelers, Inc. is required to file a DBA certificate saying Tompkins County Remodelers, Inc. is doing business as TC Seamless Gutters. Again, to protect consumers so they know who they're dealing with and to protect them. It's not to give them an advantage. It's because Tompkins County Remodelers, Inc. knows that they're TC Seamless Gutters. The other people who deal with them may not know. So this levels the playing field. We have consumer protections in the area of gas price gouging. We've come into situations in my tenure at the Attorney General's office where we've sued entities for price gouging. But a lot of people don't understand what price gouging is. Price gouging is a very limited circumstance. It's not just somebody's prices are higher than somebody else's prices. What happens is, in price gouging, the limited circumstance is if and I wish I had the exact language in front of me. I've seen the statute a million times, but it's if there's a extraordinary, or I'm not sure what the term is, it's not outrageous, but if there's an outrageous price increase due to a unforeseen event, fraud, flood, war, some other natural disaster, hurricane or something, merchants are prohibited from excessively increasing prices to take advantage of this unforeseen disaster. And if they do, it's a violation of law. We had examples, there was many years ago an ice storm in the North Country of New York. Trees were down all over, wires were down all over. Exploiters were coming from that area down into here in Binghamton area and going to a Home Depot or whatever store and buying generators, driving them back up to the North Country and charging 3 times the price. Now, I just say what the law is. I don't have an opinion. I think that's exorbitant, but I don't have an opinion. Some have said on the other side of it that Well, you're not, unless you allow that to be done, people aren't going to be able to get the generators that they have. But the legislature has determined that that's bad. That's really bad. And they've adopted a statute. So we'll get calls periodically. It's happened with natural disasters like in Sandy, with gas prices in gas stations down there. If the price increased because of the natural disaster, for example, there was more costly for the trucks had to come from a farther distance to deliver the gas to the gas stations, and that caused an increase in their expenses and costs, and they pass that increase in cost over to the consumer, that wouldn't be a violation of the state because it has to be unreasonable. But if their costs were increased because of these unforeseen circumstances, it wasn't exploiting the natural disaster, it was just they had increased costs and the costs had to go up somewhat. Then that's one thing, that's a different story. But if you just say, hey, man, this is a way I can make a few extra bucks by doing this sort of thing, it is illegal. So just because, I've had situations where gas prices do vary in communities. Could be a whole host of reasons. And in some areas, it's always like 10 cents, 15 cents more than other areas. And we'll get complaints periodically. This is price gouging. And the definition in New York is that it has to be an exorbitant price increase as a result of some event that's being exploited. And we have brought cases against hotels. Like if there's a flood, there was a huge flood in Binghamton in 2011, I think. And the 17 was completely flooded. You couldn't move. And some hotels, it's like tripled their price or something for people who could not get around to stay there. And we had to show to them that was not allowable unless they could show to us that there was some type of increase in expense or something that required that to be. You just cannot exploit those situations. So the whole idea is to give us consumers a level playing field so that we then have to go over to the consumer obligation side of it. We as good consumers have to use those laws to protect ourselves. Meaning, if we didn't look at the small print, depending on how small it is, or we didn't read the entire agreement, that's on us. We really need to be good consumers, read everything that we sign, understand it completely, and this is just designed to say, hey, businesses, you got to make that information available. Then it's on us to use that information to our and make sure that there's a adequate decision-making process and it works for us. Know the terms of your deal. Know every term. Don't be afraid to ask. No question in this area is a stupid question. Ask about all terms and conditions. And the good thing is that if you ask and you're told all the information and you decide to go ahead and buy it, you're going to be much more comfortable. And frankly, the merchant's going to be much happier that they've disclosed all of this stuff. Be a good consumer. Protect yourself. If you use all of these tips, you will go a long way toward protecting yourself, avoiding the scams that come out there, and you'll be able to be a good consumer. If you do that, everything should work out. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I encourage everybody out in TV land to come join us the second Thursday of each month. We've been here many, many years at Cornell Cooperative Extension. We invite you to also come and join us. You can throw out questions. I'll try to handle them. And we also have a little bit of time after our session is over with here to where people can actually ask me other types of consumer-related questions, which I'd be happy to entertain. So please join us. Thank you very much for attending, and hopefully we will see you here next time.